Welcome to the Unpacking It podcast. Right now, we are joined by former NFL safety Solomon Wilcots. He played 6 seasons in the league after being drafted out of Colorado in the 1987 draft. He spent time with the Bengals, Vikings, and Steelers. He has had an award-winning broadcasting career since his playing days, spending time at ESPN, CBS, and the NFL Network. He can be heard on Sirius NFL Radio, and he's the co-host of Bleav in Bengals Podcast with Pacman Jones. Solomon, it's great to have you back on Unpacking It. How are you?
Bryce, I'm doing great, and good to be back on with you.
All right. Well, we got to start with the Bengals because really they're one of the kind of surprise storylines of the season, coming off a huge win against Baltimore, and I know you're very tapped in and keeping an eye on them, especially with this podcast, which I want to ask you about. But as far as kind of where we're at 4-2, how hesitant are you? How optimistic are you? Like, what's the kind of excitement level from your perspective at this point in the season with how well they played?
Well, many of us are still surprised, particularly after Sunday's win over the Baltimore Ravens made them 5-2, so they're actually tied with the Baltimore Ravens, but in first place in the AFC North Division. And it was the first time they've ever beaten the Ravens with Lamar Jackson as the Ravens starting quarterback. He had come into the game 5-0 against the Cincinnati Bengals, but things have changed in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow coming to town, and now that they've been able to pair him up with his former LSU teammate, Jamar Chase, who's really did struggle during the preseason, but now he's hit the ground running. He said that he was going to set records when he was drafted by the Bengals with the 5th overall pick. And boy, has he lived up to it. As you well know, he just set a rookie receiving record with the most receiving yards through the first 7 games of an NFL career. So this guy is doing big things.
Well, 2 things that just, I think, add to the surprise. One is a lot of people were questioning when the Bengals drafted a receiver over a lineman. So that was the big decision, that early in the draft. So first we'll start there. What did you make of the choice? And then what do you say now to maybe the naysayers at that point?
I was one of the people who were in the Penei Sewell camp because I just was so afraid for Joe Burrow after what I saw happen last year, throwing the ball some 41 times per game through the first 10 games of the season. And then he was injured playing against the Washington football team. Went in to play that game against a team that had 5 first-round picks on this defensive line. I had this fear and trepidation waking up that very morning thinking, I don't know if our quarterback can survive that kind of game. And he ended up suffering a season-ending knee injury. So going into this season, that was the context that pretty much everyone had. Look, do everything you can to protect him. And we thought getting that lockdown left tackle was the answer. And now I didn't quibble with the selection of Jamar Chase because I knew how good he was. And he was by far the number 1 wide receiver on the board. There was him and everybody else, and no one else compared to him. So when they drafted him, I saw him as another pick similar to the one they made in 2011 when they took, A.J. Green. I knew he was a bona fide blue chip player that would change and impact the franchise.
Well, and so I guess in some ways we've seen, similar setups with the Bengals with a good quarterback, Carson Palmer and AJ Green, like you mentioned, and Andy Dalton had a nice career in Cincinnati. What's different about this version of the Bengals, and what do you say to the Bengals fans as far as being optimistic with this being different?
It's Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow. And I watched him every single game during that 2019 season. I mean, I had already knew his story, knew that Urban Meyer had chosen to play Dwayne Haskins over him, and I knew that he transferred. Wasn't a lot of takers. UCLA and LSU were the only 2 teams. He chose to go down there and play with Joe Brady and in that offense. And this is a guy with supreme confidence in his ability. And he's the son of a coach. He's from that northeastern corner of the state of Ohio. And in that area, traditionally, a lot of great players from that area, southwest corner of Pennsylvania, northeast corner of Ohio, where the steel mills are, where a lot of blue collar workers, people who have sort of been left behind in this country, so to speak. This is the area across the Pennsylvania line where Jim Kelly, Joe Montana, Johnny Unitas, and in that northeastern corner, these guys play football and they play it for the love of the game. Hardworking cats. And that's where Joe Burrow's from. You heard him talk about it when he won the Heisman Trophy. He has a spirit about him, an intellect about him where he truly understands this game. You're going to hear a lot of comparisons to Tom Brady. And it's not because they think he's going to be that great. It's because of the foundational things that he has, the love for the game, the hard work that he has, and this intuitive sense of how to create his own opportunities at the line of scrimmage pre-snap. On Sunday, the Ravens blitzed him on every single play, and he just began to carve them up. He clicked. He found and figured out where the weak points were. And one of those weak points was get the ball to not only Jamar Chase, but he knew that the tight end, C.J. Uzomah, could win against that defense, and he did. And that's what broke the game open in the second half in the third quarter with 2 touchdowns to C.J. Uzomah. And then they really blew it wide open with the run game. So he's got a competitive spirit about him, Bryce, that I think sets him apart from all of these other young quarterbacks that may be talented and they look good in the pocket. And I'm not knocking Carson Palmer because I love Carson Palmer. I thought he could be the great quarterback the Bengals had never had. And then Andy Dalton. But this guy is different than all the other guys.
I love it. And I guess what's interesting with so many young quarterbacks starting as quickly as they do, you know, we like to make quick judgments on these guys, but with Joe Burrow, it's evident, it's obvious, it's like this guy's different. And so when you do look at some of the other young quarterbacks, especially 5 guys have started this year as rookies, do you make any other proclamations about the other young quarterbacks in the league where you can say, yep, this guy's special too, or even on the flip side, say, I don't think this guy's gonna cut it. Can you already do that for anybody else?
I think it's too early to tell. I think it's such a small sample size that it's just way too early to tell. I'll give you an example. If you were sitting here in the 2012 season, you know what we'd be talking about? You know what all the rage would be about? RG3, Robert Griffin III.
Yep.
And
Andrew Luck.
And well, no, because that guy was the offensive rookie of the year. He was the Heisman Trophy winner. So it was. I'm just telling you, that's the small sample size. It was RG3 was all the rage. He went on to take that team to the playoffs, and he ended up getting the AFC. He got the Rookie of the Year in the National Football League over Andrew Luck. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That small sample size would lead you to believe something that over time that we now know isn't true, that Andrew Luck was the head of the class. And oh, by the way, in the third round that very same year, this guy named Russell Wilson was also selected, who has actually turned out to be better than all of those guys taken in the 2012 draft, including Ryan Tannehill. So so the big picture gives you just a more clear picture of how things work out. And so we forgot about Tannehill. Sometimes we forgot about Russell Wilson. And at that moment, if you would have went 8-7 weeks into the season, all the rage was really about RG3 and not about those other guys.
And Kirk Cousins was in that draft class too.
Exactly right. He sure was. He
played pretty well this year.
That's right.
No, that's a good perspective. So I do want to hear more about your podcast, because you're covering the Bengals and you're doing this podcast with Pacman Jones, and so it's called Bleav in Bengals, and so it's a podcast you can find anywhere. So how fun has this been? And when people hear the name Pacman Jones, they think of all the different things from his career. What have you grown to appreciate about him and doing this with him?
Well, you should know that when I got the call from the Bleav Podcast Network to start a podcast that exclusively focuses on the Cincinnati Bengals, and I got the call to do that podcast, and I was told that you could pick anyone you want in the market, anyone who's maybe they're a former player, maybe they're a reporter who covers the team. I had the option to go with anyone. And I said, how about Adam Pacman Jones? And I didn't know what their response would be. And they were like, wow, that's an interesting take. Tell us more. In other words, why would you leverage this opportunity and bet on someone like Adam Pacman Jones? And I know what the outside perspective is. And Adam will tell you, say, look, I understand why people think what they think about me, but I'll share this with you. There are some things about him that people don't know, and that he doesn't go around waving the flag, trying to get credit for. But I'll just kind of share this with you. He played for the Cincinnati Bengals. He played for Jerry Jones. You know, both of those owners would stand on the table for Adam Pacman Jones. And you got to ask yourself, well, why would they do that? Because they know that the narrative, the outside narrative on him is totally untrue. It's mixed with some things that are true, but it's also shrouded. A lot of the good things there are shrouded by some things that are untrue. And Mike Brown once told me, and I can quote him on this, he said, Solomon, do you know it's amazing, if that guy were born to maybe any other different circumstance, it's no wondering what he could have become. This is coming from a guy who's an owner in the National Football League, he's got a law degree, who's a graduate at Dartmouth, okay, who played quarterback at Dartmouth, did Mike Brown, the son of the late, great Paul Brown. That's what he had to say about Adam Pacman Jones, because he understands he's a very bright, very smart man. He really is. He's got an intuitive sense about him. And the fact that he's still here with us, despite that a lot of the things that he's been through in his life, I think is a testament that he's here for a purpose. And if people really got to, I'm not here to kind of throw bouquets at him or any of that stuff. I'm not here to try to help him clean up an image. No. We're just trying to do a podcast, and I'm giving him the opportunity to show people who he really is, what he's really about, and give him an opportunity to grow as a young man. He lives in the same community as I do. I live in a very conservative community. The people here, they get to know you for who you are, not what people say about you. And I can tell you right now, he's one of the most beloved people in the community. I can't tell you how many people I meet, business owners, moms and dads, they love Adam Jones. That's what they call him, Adam.
That's
my
cool.
goodness. And so, these are people who know him, and they also have seen moments where the guy's out having a good time. And so I tell him all the time, I said, you're like Jesse James. And you're like the guy who's the fastest gun in the West. You got this reputation. And, Jesse James was a guy that kind of, took care of people in his own community. He took care of his mom, he and his brother Frank. And for whatever reason, no matter where he was at, people wanted to try him. It's like the fastest gun in the West. There's always somebody think they're better, and they provoke and want to try him. And so he's working to get better at just walking away from those moments.
That's cool. Well, no, it's great that you're a part of his life and being a part of this podcast. So that's really neat. And now covering a Bengals team that's looking strong and off to an incredible start. So very, very cool. Well, you've been such a long time broadcaster and multiple networks. And I'm curious just to get your thoughts and somewhat on the outside looking in. For one, there's a couple new young analysts, relatively young after their playing career. Guys like Tony Romo, Greg Olson just joined the booth, and you spent 16 years in the booth with CBS. And so I'm just curious your thoughts on some of the younger, kind of next generation of analysts that are following in your footsteps in that career path. Does anybody jump out to you? Aqib Talib is kind of a unique guy coming in with a new style. What's your take?
I like all those guys. I really do. I like even more that the networks, it wasn't like this when I came in, that the networks literally tailor the broadcast to the style of the former player, the former athlete. Yeah. I remember at one time saying, man, there ain't a whole lot of people who could do this kind of job. It's just, it's going to be rare. And I remember talking to then Commissioner Paul Tagliabue, who was really very warm and receptive to the opportunity given to me to do the games. And he said, we want to get more players like yourself that really can articulate the game. People need to be able to see the eyes. They need to see the game through the eyes of former players. And the networks have done a really good job of shaping the broadcast and how the story of the game is going to be told through the eyes of the analysts. I think there always had been this sort of push-pull. Who's going to be the star? Is it going to be the play-by-play guy? Is it going to be the analyst? And I always thought it was a team. I thought it was not about that. And for whatever reason, if you wanted to really steer the broadcast toward the analyst, unless he was some future Hall of Famer, it just didn't happen. You didn't get producer, director, executive producers, and play-by-play guys saying, hey, let's build it around him. Let's build it. And then I thought with Tony Romo, that's exactly what happened. They were, I think they were very cognizant that Tony had a certain kind of personality, a certain kind of insight. In fact, I know the producer who worked with him, and I know they wanted to build it around him. And they wanted to use every quarterback from Peyton Manning on. I mean, imagine if you asked Peyton, and if you watch what Peyton is doing on the Monday night deal with his brother, he and Eli.
I was going to ask you.
They could tell you what's getting ready to happen. Oh, they're getting ready to go here now. Oh, he's checking to this. Quarterbacks, because they know the language, they can see the sets. I would only do it only in certain situations on third down, short yardage and goal line, and down inside the red zone, and then the final 2 minutes of each half. Quarterbacks can do it down in and down out. I don't think that's what listeners or viewers want. It's kind of like watching a movie. You don't want someone who's seen the movie already to tell you, here's what's getting ready to happen. Here's what's getting ready to happen. So you got to pick. I think you got to pick your moments. And that's what I used to do. And I think they really built it more around Tony, where he could do it at strategic moments. And people were like, wow, we never saw that happen before. It's happened before. I did it for years. I know some other guys that did it. We kind of picked our spots. But the fact that they're doing that now with a Keep to Lead on Fox, I think Gus Johnson is the right play-by-play announcer who will defer to Aqib Talib. He knows how to set up Aqib Talib. Hey, particularly a certain matchup for a corner or a defensive back, and he knows how to pitch it into the wheelhouse uniquely designed for that analyst. And I think that's what we see now happening more. You're going to get more of that for Greg Olsen. And these guys are able to shine. And this is how we should have always been doing it. And I think we should continue to do it. And I think the more that you can tailor it for the former athlete, and I can tell you right now, if you go back and listen to some of the sound bites by Howard Cosell, he was adamant about not doing that. And as much as I liked Howard Cosell, he thought there was something wrong, and he railed against it and preached against, the athletes coming into the broadcast booth, taking a job from that student who went to college to study broadcast and spent years toiling away in some small market den. And now the athlete leaves the field without no training and walks right into the job. That's exactly what he said. That's exactly what he said.
That's a good impression. I like it. Man. No, it's fascinating to me. And even as someone, I'm a big Jim Nantz fan and listen closely to him. He's changed with Romo. So kind of to your point, he's adjusted even his style, and he's loosened up to go along, and kind of his enthusiasm with Romo has been refreshing. So I think that's been fun to hear. And then you mentioned Peyton and Eli. So I'm a huge fan of this on Monday night. What about for you? As you like the classic booth, I'm sure, which I do too. But this is refreshing.
I've always told Peyton, years I call his games. I'd just be talking to him in our production meetings. I said, Peyton, one day, dude, you're going to be doing this. You're going to be calling games. I said, you're going to be the best ever. You're going to be the best. I still tell him, he's going to, any job he wants, particularly because I know his personality. I know his acumen. I know the IQ. This guy is phenomenal. I could just tell you right now. And Peyton is so gracious. I think he's waiting for the right opportunity. If he decides to do it, he will be the absolute best. And fans are going to enjoy him. And now they're getting a chance to enjoy him over this, what we call second screen experience of the Monday night game. And I think he's doing it for Eli. He loves his brother now. I can tell you, I've always known this. And he'd do anything for his younger brother. And they're both, I think the way they come off, this is quintessential Archie Manning. Their father is one of the most classy men, one of the most dignified gentlemen that you'll ever meet. And I've always known that about Archie. I've had the opportunity to meet him and come in contact and sit and talk with him. I can tell you right now, I have such high praise for him as a person, as a father, and as a man. And I've known the boys for a while. They're phenomenal. And I'm really happy for Eli. I'm happy for Peyton. And now I'm happy that, football fans get to see them for who and what they really are. I think they're one of our national treasures. I really do. I Bleav that. I know that's high praise, but I Bleav that and a lot more, that they've made our league better. And something tells me we're not done yet. Something tells me Cooper's son, Arch, he's going to be playing in this league also. So their gift to us just keeps coming. Just keeps coming.
Cooper's awesome too. I always love him on TV.
He's phenomenal. Probably, listen, he's top of the class when it comes to the personality now.
Absolutely.
This guy's phenomenal. He's in his own right. Really is.
That's right. Yeah, you said you're happy for Peyton, you're happy for Eli. I'm happy for myself because Monday nights I'm set. I'm sitting back and I'm so entertained and it's awesome. So I've enjoyed it very much so. All right, so I love talking football. I love talking broadcasting. Also love talking faith and we had you on last time and heard a little bit about your faith journey. But what I'm curious today, these last year and a half has just been challenging, and so all of us have different ways we've responded. But I'm curious for you, in what ways has your faith been challenged, or has it been strengthened and grown? Just within the last year or so, and what are some of those even lessons learned that they maybe can be an encouragement to somebody listening today?
There's no doubt that it's been trying times. I mean, for our country. I love this country. I love the United States of America. I grew up and was born and raised in California. My father is a pastor of the church that I grew up in. And I grew up with a lot of cousins, a lot of extended family members who we all grew up in the church. And our grandmother was in the church every single Sunday. And we'd have big Sunday dinners after church. And then we go back to church in the afternoon. And then we go have another meal, come back in the evening. I mean, we were in church every single Sunday, all day. And that's just what I knew. And that's what I grew up. So I was always surrounded by love and good, positive people and taught to see the world optimistically, because that's what our faith teaches us. And so the political climate that's been very toxic, to have people turning on one another based on race, based on gender, based on class, based on economics, based on whether or not they've got a vaccination or not. These things are just, they're so disappointing, and it's so toxic that there's just only one way truly to understand it. And through much prayer, I've asked, show me what is going on in our world. And it really is about our spiritual journey. All the things that we see are nothing more than a distraction, right? From what is the spiritual world. You and I both know this. There are things that are not seen that are among us. Okay. Whenever you are conflicted and perplexed and like, what the heck is going on? And it seems to be so overwhelming. You need to understand that there is a spirit amongst us that wants to keep us divided, that doesn't want to see us unify, that certainly doesn't want to see us be respectful and loving and kind to one another, that doesn't want to offer second chance forgiveness for people who have really done the wrong thing. There are people who are good, wonderful people who are capable of acts of things that we call sin. And that's why you hear Derek Carr talking about his coach, John Gruden, love the man, hate the sin. That's the perfect way to respond to someone who has tripped up and done something that we can all agree on that's not cool, right? Yep. We can all agree on that, but we need to understand to still offer forgiveness for people when we all make mistakes, because none of us are perfect. So I just wanted to kind of give you those few examples, and understand that it is a spiritual journey. And if you understand that it's a spirit thing that it's not a Democrat or Republican thing, that it's not a this president or that president thing. It's not a good guy or a bad guy thing. It's a spirit that's always been here amongst humanity, that does not want us to get along, that does not want us to love one another. But since, say, the first pioneers who set foot on this continent came over and decided they had to work together in order to survive. If they didn't work together to till the ground and to save up, right, and to store up food, they weren't going to survive the winter. And I think it's only when we are tested through tough and difficult times that we realize we need each other. And so that's how I come out of this with great optimism, saying that, you know what, we're in some tough times now. This isn't the first plague that has ever, swept across, humanity, where it's taken people away from us, people that we love, people that we care about. People had to make personal choices in terms of how they're going to go about their lives and protect themselves and protect their community and protect family members so that we all can survive the winter of these times. And that's my focus, is really about helping people to understand that, hey, at the end of the day, if your thinking isn't about loving people and thinking about how we can be unified, how we can stick together, then it's a detriment to humanity, because that's the only way that humanity can survive and progress moving forward, is if we all stick together. Not just people from my tribe or from your tribe and going off into our corners. No, it's humanity needs something from everybody. It requires all of us to participate to ensure our survival.
Amen. Amen. Well said, Solomon. Really appreciate that. And it's almost leading me to think just of the word sacrifice too. And just, we talk about it in sports, and we see it and we realize, all right, you got to sacrifice for the betterment of the team. Right. And that word just kind of even sums up what you were saying as well. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, it really does. And that sacrifice it's not about me. It's about others. It's about others. And that's what I think about, whether or not, and I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. I'm just giving you my examples in terms of how I view things and how I look and move to make it all work and to make sense of it all. For one, I have to be loving. And when you're loving, you think of others first. You put others first. And that's the sacrifice that we all make. Think about community. Think about what it means to commune together. My survival is ensured because whatever I don't have, you have, Bryce. And whatever you don't have, I have to give to you. We're going to share these resources, right? But every individual is making some kind of sacrifice to ensure that the team can be taken care of. I tell people all the time, the National Football League is one of the best examples of what unity is all about. You have 32 teams that compete against one another, but economically on the balance sheet, they all share resources to ensure their survival, right? The worst team gets the best gifts, right? They get the first overall pick in the draft. They get awarded the best player. If that player is cut from one team, the team with the worst record gets awarded that player. They make sure that the resources are distributed to the maybe the guys that's at the bottom of the totem pole. But when we do that in our society, it's cloaked with terms that have bad connotations. So socialism, liberal, and whatever. And it just helps somebody. I mean, why do you have to label and helping someone and give it some bad label that makes it now not okay to do so? And so the NFL, they maybe get it. They're sharing resources. They're taking not one team in any given year, even during a global pandemic, finished in the red. How about that? Not one. Not one.
That's right. That's good.
Sacrifice. Yeah, and it doesn't. That's about sacrifice.
That's it. And it doesn't mean the government has to tell us how to do it. We do it out of the love that Christ has shown us. And so we lead the way. We lead the way with that, with the sacrifice and the giving and the love. And that's what we want to represent as followers of Jesus. Right. So that's a wonderful encouragement and message. Well, Solomon, I guess as we wrap up, so we're 7 weeks through the season now. So you corrected me, 5-2 the Bengals are, so 7 weeks. Are there two teams that you say, hey, these are the two teams to beat? These are my Super Bowl favorites at this point. Who jumps out to you? Because I think it's kind of a little bit wide open outside of the Bucs.
The three teams. The NFC is so crowded.
Yeah,
it's crowded, and right now, it's going to be shocking because I'm not going to name Arizona. The three teams that right now for me that just resembles the three teams are going to be hard to beat. And that's Tampa, it's the Rams, and it's the Cowboys. Because those two, they play great defense, and the offense has a component where they can run the football. They can get physical and run the ball, and then the quarterbacks are experienced enough to not flinch during those big games, and they have the experience in those big moments. Matthew Stafford set a single season record for the most come from behind wins in a single season. When he was in Detroit, he set that record. So he's a baller now. He's a game. Yeah. And that's the stuff that I'm not ready. Arizona's a very young team. They have some veterans they did bring over, but at some critical positions, they're still very young. They're not running the ball, I think, with a great physicality, even though I think they're forming and shaping into the team, still yet to be seen. The defense is playing phenomenal. So I like what Vance Joseph is doing on that side of the ball. So you can, and maybe in a month or two, we can add them to that list of those NFC teams. On the AFC side, I think Buffalo is a phenomenal team. And I think the teams that you got to watch out for outside of them are going to be the Raiders. I think the Bengals are another one of those teams. And the Tennessee Titans are capable of beating anyone. And if the defense showed up in Kansas City, I would put them in that list. But I'm not going to do that for now. But those are the teams that I see trending. And remember, this is a week-to-week deal. These teams takes a new, different shape and form every single week, and the confidence and sort of like a metal that's being forged through fire. We don't know what we're going to get on the other side when we pull them out of the cauldron, if you will. But these are the teams that I think are trending towards having the metal to become championship teams.
I like it. I don't think you mentioned the Raiders or the Colts. Those are two other teams in the AFC that are interesting. I mean, it's wide.
I mentioned the Raiders. I did mention the Raiders.
You did say the Raiders. Okay. The Raiders, 5-2 Raiders. So the Colts are maybe the other team that you meant kind of growing, pushing through. They got through the weather game, and I thought that was an effective one. So it's fun. It's been a great start to the season, and happy for your Bengals at this point. So pretty cool. But Solomon, man, appreciate the wisdom. Appreciate you being a part of Unpacking It today. Great catching up with you. Enjoy the rest of the season and look forward to the next time we talk.
Bryce, you're a good man. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on your show. I love coming on with you and sharing some nuggets. So thank you for the opportunity. You take care and have a good day.
Absolutely. You too. There's Solomon Wilcots joining us here on Unpacking It.